All right, welcome back, everybody. In this video, we will be discussing most improved player. Now, this is actually a pretty highly debated one between Rourke and I, so this should be a lot of fun. All right, so Rourke, ultimately, Brandon Ingram taking home the most improved player this year, putting up averages of 23 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. And while I think he only took a jump from 18 points per game last year with the Lakers to 23 points per game this year, obviously taking a much bigger role within the team. And the biggest improvement for him is his three-point shooting, going from 33% last year to 39% from three this year. What did you think of Brandon Ingram's performance this year?
I think you nailed it right on the head. It's Brandon Ingram was able to his stats obviously improved, but they don't really jump out at you as like a huge jump. But it's really the role that Brandon Ingram played from last season into this season. Last season, I mean, he was still a good player, but people didn't really know about Brandon Ingram's trajectory. If he could transition into becoming an all-star caliber type player, the Lakers obviously traded him away, keeping their younger talent in Kuzma, thinking that he could turn out to be better than Brandon Ingram. Now, I think the Lakers might regret that decision. We'll see how Kuzma ends up playing out. But when you see now the Brandon Ingram's improvement, I think there's no doubt that Brandon Ingram has jumped into this all-star caliber type player, nominated for his first all-star game this year, being by far the best player on the Pelicans. You do have Drew Holiday there, who's a veteran and is very good too, but Brandon Ingram becoming the number one person in the team and the number one option for everyone, getting involved, Lonzo Ball, finding him. And I think that young unit around there, Brandon Ingram, was able to I mean, I'm not around the team, so I can't really say how much of a leader he actually was, but I assume that he did take on some type of leadership role and showing not only on the court, but off the court, being able to kind of, because he's been there for a few years, he's been around the block within LA and coming here. So I think Brandon Ingram definitely improved a lot. The case could be made for Luka and the other choices that were also there, but I think at the end of the day, Brandon Ingram, very, very deserving for it. I do have one pick for most improved player. I'm going to let you say your take first, though, because I think someone who wasn't even a finalist should have been the most improved player this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, well, what you're alluding to is Brandon Ingram became the guy in New Orleans, right? If
Yeah.
the game's on the line, who are you giving the ball to? The answer is Brandon Ingram, hands down. You probably were going to give it to Lonzo or Zion, because he wasn't there for the whole majority of the season. Drew Holiday was always an option, but I think we can both agree Brandon Ingram was the one who was responsible for their success. So obviously taking that leap, I think does launch him into a position where you can see him winning that award. Right now, I definitely want to give you time to talk about your boy. Now, for me, I think Luka Doncic was more deserving just because of how he carried his team to the playoffs and how he honestly elevated himself to being a top 10 player in the league, right? And being from rookie of the year to taking even a bigger leap this year, going from 21 points per game last year to 29 points per game this year, a little under 28 points something, but 29 points per game essentially. Really taking a leap and even maybe garnering some MVP discussions if the Mavericks had accumulated more wins. But what did you think of Luka's performance? And then get into a little bit to the guy you think should have won it.
Yeah, Luka, no doubt, definitely jumped this year into becoming an MVP consideration player. I think he was fourth or fifth on the ballots. I think Anthony Davis was fourth. I think he might have been fifth. Um, but definitely in that conversation for MVP, no doubt Luka was able to improve at a substantial level, becoming one of the best players in the league. I definitely think there was a lot of hype surrounding Luka. It should be noted that the Mavericks have a lot of help on their team, though. It wasn't just Luka pulling his team into a good playoff position. When you have underrated guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Seth Curry, these guys are great basketball players, and that doesn't even highlight Kristaps Porzingis, who is criminally slept on due to his injuries in his past. The guy is no doubt a top all-star player when he's playing. He's averaged points just like that. He got hurt when closing out the Clippers series. I definitely think if he played, the Mavericks could have made some more noise fighting the Clippers in the playoffs. And you'll see that next year. If Kristaps can stay healthy, I think that's actually the key to the Mavericks playing really, really well. But Luka, no doubt, had a great year. But someone who's no one wants to talk about. Luka gets all the hype. Trae Young, lost in the hype. Trae Young now, I think, because you look at his body, you look at the Hawks, you see their record, and you say, okay, how good can the guy actually be? But you look at last year, Luka won Rookie of the Year over Trae Young, and I thought Trae Young deserved it more. So especially because of how he played in the second half of the year, and Trae Young has not looked back. He had a rough first 6 months coming into the league, but since then he had an outstanding second half of the year last year, and was even better this year. I'll tell you what, something you guys definitely don't know about Trae Young. Who do you think averaged more points this year, Trae or Luka, John?
Well, I know the answers, so
Well,
that's
you
not.
know the
But I
answer.
think the average NBA fan would probably say Luka Doncic.
Yeah, and the point is, like, no one even knows that Trey is top five in scoring. I think he's fourth right now, averaging 29 points a game. That is ridiculous in the NBA. You look at his body, you look at his stature, and that's the same reason people knock Trey Young as a player. And you say, okay, well, how does that guy average more than Curry? Like, what what Curry's career high average is?
No, I don't.
I don't know it either. I think it's like 27, 29. I know he didn't break 30, but the point is that Trae Young is averaging in his sophomore season, he's averaging 29.6. I mean, you can round that up to 30. So he's fourth in scoring ahead of Giannis. You look at assists. The only guy who beats Trae Young in assists is LeBron James, who led the league. Trae Young was second in assists this year, averaging 9.3. I mean, the guy almost averaged 30 and 10. And he's not, no consideration, wasn't top 10 in any sort of MVP voting. I'm not saying Trae Young is an MVP player, obviously because the Hawks were not a good team. But the fact that this guy, who was worse than Luka, right, has now jumped from averaging over 10 points a game. He's jumped to being second in assists. He averages higher steals than Luka. This guy gets no consideration. I didn't see him considered at all for most improved player. And while I do like that he was a starter in the All-Star game, at least he gets some credit there. But Trae Young, very, very slept on. I mean, the dude is averaging 30 and 10. 30 and 10 in his second year.
And that was one of the most surprising things when we were doing our research for this award. Why wasn't he considered? And I think the clear answer is because the Hawks didn't win many games, and you can make the empty stats or great player on a bad team argument, and that kind of does that makes his argument lose some validation. But no one can doubt the guy's personal achievements for the season. And obviously, once the Hawks get some more get some more help on the team, maybe they can start making some more noise in the East. Now, I do want to obviously cover Bam Adebayo as well, someone who is I believe this number two contender for most improved player, taking on a way bigger role with the Heat this year, moving on from 9 points per game to 15, 7 rebounds to 10, and biggest thing, 2 assists to 5 assists, becoming one of the most versatile big men in the entire league and especially the East. All right. So what did you think of Bam's season this year?
No, yeah, I think you nailed it right there, Bam. I didn't mention this earlier, but I actually think that Bam was very deserving as well for the most improved player. While I would have given it to Brandon Ingram, I saw like it could have been a toss-up between him and Bam. The first place votes were very, very close. And Bam is another one of those guys where, yes, his stats jump, but you can't really see how much he improved as a player. Like, same thing with Brandon Ingram in terms of their role on the team. Now, Bam Adebayo, he did get onto one of the top first two all defensive teams. So he gets some credit there and shows that he was really able to impact the floor. Another sophomore year player really, really stepping up this season and helping the Heat, being that big guy, that anchor in the paint. But as you and I play fantasy basketball with each other, we know that Bam Adebayo also creates for other people on his team. I don't want to go out on a limb and say he was the leading assists on his team because I don't think he was, but he will be the leading assist leader, I bet you, next year for the Heat. It's unreal how often he gets up to the elbow to the top and gets the ball and creates for other people on his team. And that doesn't even highlight, like you said, the increase in scoring, increase in rebounds, and the defensive presence he has now for the Heat. One of the main reasons, obviously they got Jimmy Buckets, but one of the main reasons the Heat were able to dethrone the Bucks and are now looking like they're going to the finals. We'll see how it shapes up.
Absolutely. You mentioned the high elbow impact that he has on the offense, and just really now that Hassan Whiteside was traded in the offseason, really taking on a huge role. You kind of think of it as the rookie running back in football. with who when the veteran either retires or gets traded, now you say, oh man, this guy's going to have so many opportunities. And Bam absolutely took advantage of those opportunities. And and you kind of mentioned with Ingram, I think what puts Ingram ahead, at least in the Bam versus Ingram discussion, is Ingram obviously is the best player on his team. Right now, that's not taking into consideration Luca or Trey's impact in that discussion, but between the two, Ingram and Bam, I can definitely see where Bam, obviously made a huge leap, but just not being the best player on his team probably impacted him. But on the defensive end, you alluded to it as well. Obviously, being a huge disruptor in the Bucks series, and really on the defensive end, helping them towards obviously closing out that series in 5 games.